guys, Jameson Redding here with the Road Trip Angler. Today I want to do a quick review on the brand new Jackson Kayak Cusa X. Now it's no secret that I work for Jackson Kayak and I'm sponsored by Jackson Kayak. I am the brand manager of fishing. But today I want to try to take that Jackson Kayak hat off and give you an honest review of the Cusa X as if I was a consumer buying this boat at full retail. Jackson Kayak's history is in moving water and whitewater. That's where they got their start and that's where they're industry leaders. In fishing, the very first fishing kayak that they ever did was the Cusa, which was designed specifically to get into rivers and moving water and be able to fish from. They were very innovative in this, and I can say that because I bought a Cusa at full retail because I was a river fisherman and I wanted a kayak designed to get me to places in a river where I thought fish would be hanging out, and I needed the right kayak to do that. And the Cusa, I felt, was the right boat for that situation. It added a lot of functionality with the high-low seating, the standability, and just being able to manage your rods. And the whole design changed just a little bit. It became a little longer and tracked a bit better. It comes in at 11 feet, 8 inches long. It's 36 inches wide, and it weighs around 98 pounds with a capacity of 425 pounds. And the Cusa X is designed for that river angler, that person that's going to be spending time in moving water with maybe some rapids, maybe there's some narrow spots that they need to be a little more nimble. So it's a very specifically designed boat for moving water. It's pretty fun. This is a small little rapid. It can get a lot bigger, they said, when there's more water in the river, but this boat's designed for moving water. So I'm just like sitting here basically side surfing this little wave. It just shows you how it handles that moving water really well and how maneuverable it really is. Starting on the bow, you're going to notice right away, if you're familiar with that Cusa line, that it has a ton of volume in the bow. And what I felt like that did as we were testing the boat is when running those rapids, it got on top of the wave instead of trying to pierce through the wave and taking a bunch of water over into the cockpit. It was able to ride and kind of pop up and through those waves as you were going through different types of whitewater. The other thing that it does is it allows you a lot of space to store gear. I like to camp out of my kayaks on the river, and having a very large amount of volume in the bow and a large hatch to be able to put gear down inside is super key for doing so. The other thing is it has a lot of rocker, and what that means is the boat is kind of curved on either end. So that allows it to be even more nimble and handle moving water and those ripples and rapids and kind of go with them instead of trying to fight them and go through them. On the bow right away, I like the handle. The only thing I would say is Jackson is known for doing molded in handles. This is kind of a step back to the original handle, or a standard type kayak handle. And I personally like that better. Yes, there is a risk of getting a hook caught in there occasionally. And I guess if there is a negative there, that could be it. But it allows the boat to be a bit shorter and it's gonna save some weight. So having that handle that is just bolted on, if there's any problem with it or whatever, I can change it out, move it, take it on and off the boat. There's a flat area there that is for the addition of a motor if you want to add a bow mount. On either side of the handle there are two 4-inch pieces of gear track, and as you can see I actually have an anchor wizard mounted on there, and that's what the idea was behind that track, was to be able to accessorize with different anchoring options. You can also put a GoPro mount if you want. Now the only problem with that is if you put your camera all the way up there, it would be hard to reach and turn on and off. But the anchor management system works really well, and I really like that setup and being able to not have to bolt that onto the kayak. I can literally use the track and mount it right up. Right behind that, there is some molded in geometry that there's an accessory offered to allow you to run that anchor line through a tube that goes through the bow of the boat and keeps it kind of out of the way in case you have your rods staged up here from hooks, or at least it minimizes the amount of anchor line that you have exposed and that could get caught up in hooks and things like that. Now, from the factory, this does not come with that anchor tube installed, and I would like to see that, from a consumer standpoint, again, taking off that hat, I would like to see that anchor line installed from the factory, but at a pretty low price point, that accessory is really relatively easy to install. I actually installed these myself on this particular boat, and it took me about 10 minutes, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but it is one thing that I would love to see in the future installed on the boat. On both sides of the hatch, you have security bars, and those security bars will allow you to strap things down like a cooler bag, or if you need more gear. I really like the paddle keeper that's on top of the hatch lid, so it just allows you to stage that paddle when you're fighting a fish. The size and the layout of the bow hatch is really awesome as well. I also like how tall this hatch rim is around it, because you have a gasket as well, and that just really keeps the boat a lot drier. We've taken some waves over the bow when we were running some decent whitewater, some class 2s and stuff, and it stayed super, super dry. So that was a really key feature for me, and it's easy to access even while you're on the water. Stand assist strap is not something I use a lot, but it does come standard with the boat, and it will help you get up, and more than that, actually help you get down. So I think that's a good accessory, and you've got the security bar. Moving back into the cockpit, this is something that is drastically different really than most Jackson kayaks, really any Jackson kayak that's ever been launched. You'll see that the floor has this corrugated geometry in it. Now, what that does is add a whole lot of strength to the standing area, a lot less flex than previous models of the Cusa. So I'm 220 pounds and I like to stand and fish. And a lot of times before, I would have these spots over time that would begin to kind of warp or sink in, and water would stand in those areas as well. This corrugated floor feels really, really solid, and there's also foam blocks underneath, which makes the deck super rigid. I mean, it really is rock solid. So that is a really key feature. In addition to that, not that I would ever put a transducer or a fish finder on my river specific boat, but you do have the option to add that transducer with a transducer scupper, and you have pad eyes and kind of a trough that runs down the middle, both forward and aft with those pad eyes, to be able to manage that transducer line. If you ever wanted to add that, you could kind of pass through whichever side of the boat or end of the boat would make the most sense, and you could manage that line very easily, or that transducer cable. Now the foot pegs in here are a little different, and I have to be honest that when we were trying to come up with these foot pegs, I was a little bit concerned that I wouldn't like them because they're so different than what I'm used to. And I do really like foot pegs, especially in a moving water boat that I'm going to be doing a lot of paddling and I need to maneuver a lot. I can really engage the core by engaging the foot pegs. However, what I'll say is after spending time on the water, the foot pegs work really, really well. Now, if I was going to fly fish from this boat, I would probably switch out these T-nuts or these T-bolts here, the top part that secures these down, with either a flush mount or a low profile T-knob from someone like YakAttack, or I would switch it out for a bolt and a T-nut that would be completely flush there, because I'm not really adjusting these much. I stay in the high seat position most of the time. One of the big things I like about this boat a whole lot is when you're fishing rivers, a lot of times you have overhanging trees and you have rocks and things of that nature, and you want to take your rods down from your black pack or your crate in the back, and you want them down the side of the boat to keep them low. This boat has 2 rod tubes on each side, and it makes it really easy to put rods inside. It is a little bit tight here in the cockpit area, so I have kind of figured out that if I just put a little bend in the rod, it makes it super easy for me to get in and out. It took me a minute to play around with the rod rack system here. The rod rack has 3 rod places because it is the same rod rack from the NAR. And I've actually doubled up and put 2 rods in 1 rod tube and ran 3 rods on each side. Lining either side of the cockpit area, Jackson Kayak has the new tri-track system, which I've been a big fan of on my NAR because I can really adjust and put accessories wherever I want. The boat also comes with 2 paddle clips. That's a new accessory from Jackson that work really well, and they are track mountable as well. They're a little harder to get the paddle in and out, but they're very secure on the side of the boat, and it took me a few minutes just to figure out how to operate them and use the bungees, and they really hold that paddle very well, especially if you're moving the boat or transporting the boat. I feel like the paddle is very secure there. Again, in a river situation, I'm most likely not going to be clipping my paddle in there, but it's nice to have that option for when I'm traveling or carrying or moving the boat. And if I was going to add a motor, I do feel like it would be a very secure place to have it. And with all the tri-track and the flat track that's on this boat, you can really dial those paddle clips into where you want them and get the boat set up the way you like. This boat has the standard high-low seating from Jackson, which is super easy to operate. It really is just kind of a one-hand operation to go high and low. For every rapid I've ran so far in this boat, I have stayed in the high position and felt very comfortable. But if I did get into those like rougher conditions or rougher situations, knowing that I can lower the seat really quickly works well. Now, one of the things about lowering and raising the seat is that it does kind of trim the seat forward as you lower it and back as you raise it. So you may need to adjust the seat sliders to be able to dial that weight distribution back in once you lower and raise the seat, or you may also need to adjust your foot pegs if you're going to be going from high and low, because it does move probably around 4 or 5 inches forward and aft when you raise and lower the seat. And then behind the seat, you have a piece of tri-track as well that runs across, which I believe adds structure to the boat and gives you even more mounting options. Or you can keep it as clean as you like. Again, it's top loading gear track. It makes it really easy to get things in and out of. The flat track loads from either end. It has a nice cutout to be able to get the T-nut in, so it's pretty easy to rig this boat. It has 2 flush mount rod holders, which is pretty standard for any fishing kayak these days. The one thing I really like about it that I would say is a big improvement over the previous Cusa models is the expansive tank well. Crates are getting bigger. I like to take a lot of gear, and being able to put a full 16 by 16 inch black pack back here with rod holders all the way around it and it not interfere with anything is really awesome. But I didn't want to see it sacrifice access to the inside of the hull, because a lot of anglers like to be able to rig things and store a few small things inside the back of the boat. So it has a small 8-inch round day hatch. One of the things I would like to see happen is this hatch lid get actually tethered to the boat. However, I don't really take it off that much on the water, so I don't think it'll be a problem for me as long as I make sure that I tighten this down really tight and get it in the locked position. It will actually kind of click in place. Moving back from there, one of the big key features on all the Cusa models is the drag chain setup. And the drag chain setup allows you to kind of slow yourself down in moving water without fully anchoring, because sometimes in current, you don't want to fully anchor. So having some pad eyes here along with the track, it would be easy for me to rig some anchor line toward the back of the boat and run that drag chain. The power pole mounting option is on the back of this boat as well, which is pretty standard for Jackson Kayak now. And it allows you to mount both Torqeedos, all kinds of other motors, and power poles to the back of the boat without having to drill through anything or try to get in and put any kind of backing plate or screws or nuts from the inside. It has a drain plug on top and a removable skid plate, which is pretty standard as well, and those are all great features. So that's kind of the whole boat bow to stern. I have spent several days on the water with this boat, and the things that I really like about the hull shape when it comes down to it is that it is maneuverable, but by trimming the seat a little bit, I could get it to paddle very well. It takes a couple of strokes to get the boat up and moving, but once I got it up and moving, it had a really nice glide, and it felt very, I don't want to say sporty, it felt sporty on the water. I could turn it, I could edge it, I could maneuver the boat in and out of the eddies and around rapids, and I felt very comfortable the whole time. Now, it has a little bit of initial rock, and what I mean by that is when you first get in the boat, you'll realize that it has this little bit of play in it, and that's what keeps the hull shape so performant. I mean, in moving water, you want to be able to get the boat on its edge a little bit and cut back and forth, but it locks in. So I could put all my weight at 220 plus pounds on one foot and bounce, and the boat did not feel like it was going to tip over. So you just kind of got to find that spot where it locks, and what I recommend for people that haven't done that before is get in the boat, stand up, relax, and slowly shift all your weight to one foot and then go to the other. And you'll kind of learn that rock point of the boat and realize that the secondary stability is very strong on this boat. The only other thing, and again, this is taking my Jackson Kayak hat off, I would like to see that price point come down. But I do know, because I am internal at Jackson Kayak, that we strive to keep our prices really as low as we can and keep our doors open. So I know the struggle there, and I know why this boat costs what it does, because of the functionality, because we buy as many things in the US as we can, and because we build the boat here in America in Tennessee, and we're still an independently owned and operated company. And those things just cost, and everything is more expensive these days, from gas to things that we love to do as far as a recreational standpoint. Everything has went up. But yes, I would love to see it way less and be cheaper. If I'm being completely honest, that would be amazing. I don't know how we accomplish those things. And again, I don't know that I would want to give up any of the features of this boat to gain it. Fish on. Oh, geez. Woo! Woo! So for this kayak, and again, I think you have to think about what this kayak was designed for, and it was designed for river fishermen that want to get in moving water or small areas that they need to be very nimble. It has a very shallow draft. It can turn really quickly and easily, and it can handle whitewater with all the volume that it has and the added rocker to the hull shape. And I have to say, I think this is the best river fishing kayak that Jackson has ever made. And I bought a Cusa when they first came out before I was ever a team member, and I've spent a lot of time in the Cusa HD as well, and I'm very happy with how this boat performs. Now, if you want to talk about a versatile boat that can go from rivers all the way to flat water lakes, offshore, I don't know that a boat exists that can do all those things. And if you're looking for a versatile platform, something that you can really take to a lot of different places that may not always be the best option for every one of those places, this might not be the boat for you. But if you're fishing smaller ponds, smaller lakes, you're fishing a lot of moving water, rivers of any kind, or smaller water, creeks and things where you need to be nimble, you need to be able to go through some riffles and rapids every once in a while, and you need to be able to get super shallow, I do think this is a great option for you, and you should really take a look at it and get out and try to paddle it. So that is the most unbiased review I can give you of the Cusa X. Again, I have been working for Jackson for a long time, and way before that, I was a fan of the brand. I bought Jackson kayaks before I worked there and before I was a team member. So I am trying to give you that unbiased review, but I do feel like I'm part of the Jackson family, and I just want to make that kind of full disclosure that I love this boat, and I will be using this as my personal river fishing kayak for the foreseeable future. For more tips, reviews, and fishing adventures, be sure to subscribe to the Road Trip Angler. Yeah, boy! Woo! Yeah!